The North remembers. We know no king, but the king in the North whose name is Stark. I don't care if he's a bastard. Ned Stark's blood runs through his veins. He's my king, from this day until his last day.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones Season 8 Endgame Theories video. Today I want to talk about why the names of Daenerys Targaryen's dragons are very important, and I also want to point out some possible foreshadowing from the books. The main reason why I wanted to talk about this is because of the fans' reaction to the death of Viserion during the episode Beyond the Wall. I'm sure most of you are already aware that many people were pissed off about this scene, and I have even seen some comments of people saying the Night King will not kill Viserion in the books. Which could be true because as of right now there is no Night King in the books, or at least he hasn't been revealed yet. However, there are a few quotes in the books that I think are hinting at Viserion's fate. I believe that the names of each dragon could be just as important as the names of each direwolf because it could be an indication as to what will eventually happen to each one of them. So far in the television show, only one dragon has died, which was Viserion. This was the dragon that was named after Daenerys Targaryen's older, power-hungry brother named Viserys. We all remember what a prick Viserys was. In the very first season, he sold Daenerys so he could acquire an army for himself to try and take back the Iron Throne for House Targaryen. Well, Viserys never received that army, and he began to grow increasingly impatient, which eventually led to him threatening to kill his own pregnant sister, Daenerys. And I think you can all guess what happened next. Khal Drogo decided to award his new king by giving him his own crown early, before he was even seated on the Iron Throne. The pot of molten gold killed Viserys, and now the dragon that was named after him is dead too. The Night King currently has control of Viserion, and he used him to bring down the wall at Eastwatch by the Sea. Now it's only a matter of time before Daenerys and Viserion are reunited, and I think we can expect to see Viserion turn on Daenerys and Drogon, just like her brother Viserys did before he died. The dragon that Daenerys currently rides is Drogon, who is named after her late husband, Khal Drogo. That's pretty self-explanatory. Daenerys' third dragon, Rhaegal, is named after her other brother, Rhaegar Targaryen, who also happens to be Jon Snow's father. I'm sure most of you know this already, but for a very long time, people believed in the prophecy that Rhaegar made popular, which is the dragon has 3 heads. Fans assumed this meant that all of Dany's dragons would have their own Targaryen riders. Daenerys would obviously ride Drogon, but who would ride the other 2 was still up for debate. The most well-known theory states that Jon would ride Rhaegal and Tyrion would ride Viserion, mostly because people also believe Tyrion is a Targaryen. The show did give a hint at this back in Season 6 when Tyrion was able to bond with the dragons, but that was completely thrown out the window when the Night King brought down Viserion. Now it doesn't look like Tyrion will ever ride a dragon, but there is still a chance for Jon Snow to ride a dragon. The television show has confirmed he is a Targaryen, and the only other dragon Daenerys has was named after Jon's father, so it would make sense for him to ride Rhaegal. Plus, we have also seen Jon begin to bond with the dragons. I would actually love if Jon was able to mount Rhaegal because not only would he then have his own dragon, but he also has his own direwolf. How many characters in the history of this universe can say they've had both? I can't think of any. The reason why I wanted to bring this prophecy up is because it's still open for business in the books. As of right now, in the books, Daenerys still has all 3 of her dragons, but there may be some evidence that is foreshadowing the death of a dragon, which would explain why the show chose to kill Viserion first. Let's take a look at some of the quotes from the books because I know some people don't believe Viserion or any of the dragons will die in the books. The first quote I want to show you is a conversation Daenerys is having with Jorah Mormont, and what's interesting about this conversation is Daenerys is actually asking about a dragon's lifespan. Daenerys says, "Well, how long does a dragon live?" Then at that exact moment, she looks up and sees Viserion swooping low over the ship, his wings beating slowly and stirring the limp sails. Sir Jorah Mormont shrugs his shoulders, then says, "A dragon's natural span of days is as many times as long as a man's, or so the songs would have us believe. But the dragons the 7 kingdoms knew best were those of House Targaryen. They were bred for war, and in war they died. It is no easy thing to slay a dragon, but it can be done." Daenerys is concerned for the safety of her children like any mother would be. She wants to know how long dragons can live. And which dragon's name did the author choose to write next? As they were having this conversation, Daenerys notices Viserion as Jorah Mormont is telling her dragons are hard to kill, but it can be done. This could be indicating Viserion will also die in the books, but this one quote by itself could just be a coincidence, so let's take a look at another one. When Daenerys walks outside onto the terrace, she notices Rhaegal asleep beside the pool. a green and bronze coil basking in the sun. Drogon was perched up atop the pyramid, in the place where the huge bronze harpy had stood before she had commanded it to be pulled down. He spread his wings, then he spied her. There was no sign of Viserion, but when she went to the parapet and scanned the horizon, she saw pale wings in the far distance, sweeping above the river. He is hunting. They grow bolder every day, yet it still made her anxious when they flew too far away. One day, one of them may not return, she thought. So as you can see in this quote, Daenerys is getting anxious because Viserion is flying too far away. Then this is followed up by her thinking, one day one of them may not return. I think we can all guess which dragon that will be. We all know how important the names of the direwolves ended up becoming, and like I said earlier, I think the same thing can be said for the dragons. All three of Daenerys' dragons are named after men that are dead. That could be seen as a nice tribute, or it could be seen as a red flag that they're all destined to die before Daenerys. Many people believe that in order for Westeros to restore some sort of balance, we will have to see magic come to an end, which would mean the dragons must die, and Viserion was always meant to die first. During Game of Thrones Season 7, they certainly went above and beyond to let us know her dragons are not invincible, and this has been proven throughout Westeros' history. During the Targaryen Civil War, known as the Dance of Dragons, multiple dragons were either wounded or killed by scorpions and crossbows. Dreamfire was blinded by a bolt that ultimately led to her death. Stormcloud was fatally wounded by a scorpion shot to the chest, and during the First Dornish War, Meraxus, a beloved dragon of Aegon the Conqueror, was almost instantly killed by taking an iron bolt straight through the eye. This would not be the first time a man was capable of killing a dragon, but more often than not, dragons are typically killed by another dragon. Now that we have fire dragons and an ice dragon, I think it's safe to say we could see some dragon on dragon action next season. We should see at least 2 major battles next season, one battle against Cersei and another one against the Night King. Considering this is the last season, we may see more bloodshed in Season 8 than we've ever seen before, and both sides want to kill Daenerys' dragons. We have seen just how easy it is for the Night King to kill a dragon, but we also know Cersei has been preparing to kill her dragons as well. Now that Dany's dragons are entering all-out wars, it's only a matter of time before they start dropping like flies. They foreshadowed this over multiple episodes last season. It began with Cersei and Qyburn revealing they have been making plans to deal with the dragons.
She has 3 full-grown dragons, Your Grace. Same as Aegon when he conquered the 7 kingdoms. How do you propose to stop them?
We are currently at work on a solution, my lord.
Then again, in the very next episode, Cersei says this about her dragons.
I decapitated the Dornish snake. My armada owns the Narrow Sea.
Euron Greyjoy's armada owns the Narrow Sea.
Euron Greyjoy is loyal to me.
For now. Daenerys Targaryen has 3 full-grown dragons. How well do wooden ships fare against fire-breathing dragons?
Her dragons might not be as invulnerable as some think.
In this same episode, Qyburn then shows Cersei exactly what he's been working on, and he says this.
Powerful, but not invincible. Apparently, one of Daenerys' dragons was wounded by spears in the fighting pits of Meereen. If they can be wounded, they can be killed.
Right before the big parlay scene in the dragon pit, there is another scene, but this is when Tyrion says they will show up with 2 armies and 3 dragons. But we all know what happens to one of those dragons later in this episode.
Nobody trusts my sister less than I do, believe me. But if we go to the capital, we'll go with 2 armies, we'll go with 3 dragons. Anyone touches you, King's Landing burns down to them.
The death of a dragon was built up over the course of the entire season. We knew they could be taken out of the sky when Bronn hit Drogon with the ballista. The pressure continued to build and build with each passing episode until finally it popped. Then down goes Viserion. The Night King killed the first dragon, and Cersei already knows Daenerys lost a dragon. She had already had enough motivation to want to kill her dragons, but now she has the confidence that it can be done.
The Targaryens and the Starks already want to kill us all. Most of them will die in the...
I faced them in the field. We can't beat them. We can't beat their dragons.
How many dragons did you see at the pit?
2.
What happened to the third?
For all we know, it's guarding a fleet.
She came here with her dragons and her Dothraki and her Unsullied. She came here to show us all her power. No, something happened.
We knew Qyburn had one ballista made, but I'm 100% confident we will see more than one ballista in King's Landing next season. I also think Qyburn may start putting poison on the tips of the arrows as well, but I will talk about that shortly. The first dragon that obviously needs dealt with is Viserion now that he's under control of the Night King. Jon and Daenerys just left the King's Landing area, and they are now heading to Winterfell. The Night King is heading south with Viserion, and he will most likely pass right through or near Winterfell as he advances, so it's pretty obvious Jon and Daenerys will have to take care of the Night King first. The Night King currently poses the biggest threat to the realm, and he's getting closer with every passing minute. Viserion already died once, but now he will have to be killed for good. I know there are a number of different predictions about how to kill Viserion because I've actually made a video about that myself. If you've seen that video, then you know I think Drogon ends up killing Viserion. I mostly base this on the dragons' names, and also because dragons usually kill other dragons. Drogon was named after Dany's husband Khal Drogo, and Viserion was named after Dany's brother Viserys. Khal Drogo killed Viserys in Season 1, and I think Drogon will kill Viserion in the final season. But there is something I want to add. There is a very good chance Drogon and or Rhaegal are badly injured during the Great War against the Night King. I do think Drogon will kill Viserion, but that doesn't mean Viserion won't hurt or maybe even kill one of Dany's other dragons before he's taken down permanently. I think this will be what ultimately pushes Jon into riding Rhaegal. Jon knows how vulnerable the dragons are when they don't have a rider directing them, and he already feels guilty about Daenerys losing one of her dragons while coming to save him. So I think Jon could mount Rhaegal during this great battle. Now, if magic does come to an end, and all the magical elements of the show start to die out, I think Drogon could be the next dragon to go. If you read the books, you will see that Rhaegar was frequently referred to as the Last Dragon. It was basically a nickname, and as we all know, Dany's dragon Rhaegal was named after Rhaegar, the Last Dragon, so he could possibly be the last dragon to survive. Or at least the last one to be killed off, I should say. But let's think about Khal Drogo for a minute. What ultimately led to his demise was a small cut on his shoulder. He got way too cocky during his fight, just like Oberyn Martell, and it led to his death. The wound on his shoulder ended up becoming infected, which probably poisoned his blood. Then Mirri Maz Duur does her witchcraft, and Khal Drogo is basically a zombie. Now think about what happened with Drogon in Season 7. He was shot by an arrow from a ballista, and where did it hit him? Right in the shoulder, just like Khal Drogo, who he was named after. Obviously, the injury Drogon sustained during the Field of Fire is not going to kill him, but that doesn't mean he won't die shortly after this anyway. Now, I'm not saying the arrow Bronn used was dipped in poison or anything like that. However, I think Qyburn could start doing this in the future. That way, the next time they get a shot off on one of Dany's dragons, it does bring him down for good. I'm sure Jaime told Cersei and Qyburn what happened during the Field of Fire, so they should know their ballista is effective, but it wasn't quite enough to finish him off. Unless you would get lucky enough to hit him in the eye or rip through the heart, but the chances of that happening are very slim. I do want to point out there are at least two different ways you can look at this. You could say Khal Drogo was killed due to the infection, but what actually killed him for good was when Daenerys put him out of his misery. Now think of how heartbreaking it would be if Daenerys was put in this position again, but this time with Drogon, who she considers her child. This is just the kind of thing I could see Game of Thrones doing to us in the end. Daenerys might live, and she might even have a healthy baby with Jon Snow. But they could add one more gut-wrenching moment by having Daenerys put Drogon out of his misery. Everything would come full circle. Drogon would kill Viserion, just like Khal Drogo killed Viserys in the first season. Then Daenerys would end up having to put Drogon out of his misery, just like Daenerys had to do with Khal Drogo in the first season. It would almost be poetic, in an extremely sad kind of way. But in order for this to play out, something would have to happen to Drogon that would cause Daenerys to want to kill him. Well, Qyburn could poison the arrows they use for their ballistas, when Daenerys inevitably comes to take King's Landing, or the Night King could severely injure, or kill and turn Drogon too. If Drogon ended up being poisoned to the point that he became extremely sick and clinging to life, like Khal Drogo, then I could see Daenerys wanting to put him down to ease his suffering. If the Night King killed him and turned him into an ice dragon as well, then Daenerys would have to do something about that obviously, or else the Night King would kill everyone else. I'm not sure if all Dany's dragons will die, but I personally think she will lose at least one more, plus Viserion also has to die for good this time. I've always felt like Drogon would die at some point. He has been one of the main attractions since his birth. Some would even say that all of Dany's dragons have to die in the end because it's too much power for one person to have. The dragons make the system unbalanced because they are the equivalent of nuclear weapons, and everyone says this is supposed to be an anti-war story. So I could see the most powerful weapons, including all magic in general, being wiped out of existence in order for things to be restored to some sort of balance. Now, I actually enjoy the magical elements in the show, and I would hate to see Daenerys lose all of her dragons, especially Drogon, because they have such a special connection to one another, but I also can't ignore the fact that them dying is a very good possibility. Let me know your thoughts on all of this. What do you believe will happen to the dragons by the end of the show? Put your comments down below. I'm curious to see what some of you have to say. I want to thank all of you for watching the video. I appreciate that very much, and I also want to thank everyone on Patreon for supporting the channel. I hope you all have a great day. I will see you again very soon. Bye.